And today is a special day. It is Trans Day of Visibility, which is a special holiday for us that started roughly in 2009. And it's dedicated to celebrating transgender people, raise awareness for discrimination in our community, and also raise awareness for the accomplishment of trans people in society. Um, so just to give you a quick overview of how this panel will work, I'm going to be asking our lovely guests a few questions, and we'll let them answer how they feel comfortable. I'm not going to ask them one at a time. Some of the questions may have a little bit of sensitivity, but we'll try and keep it mostly light, so just bear that in mind. Some of the topics or answers may have a little bit of little depth to them, so if you're sensitive, be aware. I also want to introduce Shade Access and Polyswitch, who are here helping us today from Helping Hands. They're going to be interpreting and signing for us, so thank you so much. We're glad to have you. With that, I'll start introducing our panelists. Can you please introduce yourselves and provide a brief overview of your gender transition journey? I'll open it up first. I will ask this one in order. So Ash, who are you?
Hi, I'm Ash, she, her. I'm from Ireland. I actually started transitioning in last year, so 2023. So I'm actually coming up to my 1 year anniversary next month, which is great. I actually started socially transitioning in about late 2021, 2022. And yeah, I'm very happy to be here to share my story.
Glad to have you. And who are you?
Hi, y'all. I'm Tizzy. I'm the janitor here at the Trans Academy. I started my transition about, it's been 11 years now. It's been a while. I remember, seeing pictures of people from the mid 2000s and just like blowing my mind so much that it was even a thing that we could do. And we'll talk about that more later. But yeah, I've been at this for a little over a decade now.
Perfect.
Hi,
Nice to
I'm.
meet you. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
You're good. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Ara. I'm on the community team here at the academy. Outside of the academy, I'm a musician and a full-time nomad, currently living in LA. And I've been actively transitioning since November of 2021, and I've been on H about a month. That's all.
Perfect. Thank you. Cha?
Hi there, I'm Shah. I am a staff member for Helping Hands and also on the Trust and Safety team for Trans Academy. My day-to-day, I do a customer-facing technical thing. Not a lot to say there, but previously was traveling all over the place, and I had met a lot of people through VR, but I'll get more to that in a few questions, I'm sure. I started medically transitioning about 2 years ago. So yeah, I've definitely had quite a journey there. Yeah.
Glad to have you. And last up, but definitely not least, Fluffy.
Hi, I'm Fluffy, she, her, or they, them. I'm on the media team as the composer as well as an editor for videos. I started my transition multiple times. I'd say that my current medical transition started in 2011, and then my social transition just sort of happened, and I will definitely be talking about that later.
Perfect. All right. So I want to ask you all, reflecting on your transition, could you share your general experience and how it's affected you socially, physically, and in tandem with other factors? I'll let you guys decide who wants to answer that one first.
Wow, that's a loaded one.
Go ahead, Ash.
In social terms, it's actually been really good, and my family was very open to it when I came out to them in 2022. Uh, Living here in Ireland, it's one of the most socially acceptable countries for trans people. So I just walking around having no problem. So many resources, so many places to go to talk to. And what especially helped me for socializing is definitely the Trans Academy. Because wow, I think the experience would have been a lot tougher. Uh, as I did say, like for family, it was pretty easy. For the most part, anyway. My parents weren't hugely accepting, but everyone else in my family was. I mean, recently I visited my aunt and uncle in Spain, first time since I transitioned, and we spent an entire day clothes shopping. The last shop we were in,
Nice.
they literally told us, you gotta go for closing. So for me, the socializing aspect has been amazing. I've only ever had one issue, and I found the best way to stop that, and I don't know if you guys agree, earphones when out and about.
Mm. Mm.
I'd love to
Yeah,
hear what the rest of you
absolutely.
guys say.
Thank you for sharing that. Would anyone else like to share their experience?
Gosh, where to even begin? I mean, transition is just like one of those things that takes your life and just flips it upside down in every way. And like, I would say that it's affected every facet of my life. Just like the person who I was before and the person who I am now, it looks very, very different. And, when I was younger, I don't know if I quite had the vocabulary to describe what I felt, but I always felt this kind of disconnect with who I was. And a lot of that carried over into things like my own self-esteem. I was somebody who struggled with a lot of social anxiety when I was younger. And almost to the point where I was like agoraphobic. I didn't like to leave the house. I would do my grocery shopping at like 3 a.m. And it's because I just like didn't like who I was as a person. And I feel like transition sort of unlocked being able to be myself in the most authentic and unapologetic way. And it gave me a lot of confidence in who I was because I was able to really be myself for the first time ever. And that affected everything in my life, from my family to my job and, just everything.
Even change you have a poor or better avatar, otherwise you can clone this one.
Perfect, wonderful. I appreciate you sharing that. Would anyone else like to take a shot at that question?
I would say that that was really relatable. The whole concept of like it unlocks things. So for me, I'm a very late in life egg crack, but also not. So I think it really starts like I think I was like around like 15, 17, somewhere around that era where I was just like I really badly want to, you know, be this other person, who's not what I'm developing into physically. And, at that time I sought care and therapy and that sort of thing. And at that time they basically had gate kept it and said like, oh, well, if you're not fully in for, this list of things, then we can do nothing for you. And it wasn't until years later where I discovered that not only was that not necessarily even true, but like there's a word for that, there's terms for that, there's a whole vocabulary for what I really would rather, how I'd rather present myself and who I really am. And so that had unlocked a lot. And when I found out about that and when it was something that I actually undertook, and I was like borderline terrified, like, am I screwing something up here? Am I not? And I just kind of weighed everything and I was like, this is ultimately the most correct choice. As radical and as crazy as it sounds, just that it made sense for me, and it really has opened up a lot in terms of like people I've met, friendships I've had. I now like the way I look in a mirror. It's amazing. Like all of these things that I can just be myself and be more confident and unapologetically me. Without having to like put on this veneer and wear like some suit and tie and pretend that I'm somebody that I'm not. I can just be myself, and I really, really like that. On the social side of things, there's so many positives, but family has been a difficult thing. But I was surprised to know that like my extended family, 100% deeply committed and caring and supportive. But it's just a couple of close family where it's been very difficult. And I still wouldn't take back the decision. I still wouldn't take it back. It's really correct to be me. And I really value the friendships and other connections that I've developed because of just being myself and then seeing people who value that instead of something else.
Mm-hmm.
Hope that wasn't too deep.
No, that was wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
So
Anything you want to share?
yeah, so I grew up in the 80s. I'm quite a bit older than most of the folks here, I suspect. And I had to come out to my parents multiple times before it finally stuck. And a lot of that was just because like society has evolved a whole lot in terms of like accepting different gender variants and so on. It's just like, understanding that, oh, you don't have to become a pretty pink princess as part of your transition or whatever. When I was a teenager and first like really getting interested in what transition looks like. This was when it was still the days of the Harry Benjamin standards, which were incredibly gatekeepy. The modern WPATH standards are so much better. Like there's still some gatekeeping in it, but it's way, way less bad than it was back in the 90s, especially. And I don't even want to like go into the details of that because it's kind of traumatic, frankly. But yeah, getting family on board was, it took a while, but, I think everyone's finally on board, or at least everyone I care about is on board. And, socially, things just kind of fell into place and, hopefully there will be, more talk about that later. I alluded to that in the intro. So, yeah.
Thank you. Ara, would you like to jump on this?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the biggest thing for me is like transition has allowed me to like actually start loving myself. And throughout the process you're constantly confronted with like the question like, am I actually trans, am I not? And I would always like sit down and be like, okay, like looking at how my life was before compared to how it was now, like this is moving me in a positive direction where I'm taking better care of myself, my personal hygiene is better, and I'm becoming a better person because of it. So that's like kind of kept me going in like the darkest days, is just like seeing the path. Socially, I've been kind of fortunate and unfortunate. My mother was not very excited, especially about HRT. Surprisingly, my dad was okay with it, but I've kind of separated from them entirely and found a new family and a new group of friends. And even my old group of friends was very accepting. Most of them were in the gay straight alliance in like high school, so I'm not too surprised there. But it actually allowed me to like reconnect with people from like middle school who had also transitioned. And then now here in LA, like I found a new family both online and in person through my partner, and it's been a long, hard road, but life is a lot better than it was. Yeah.
So glad. I could totally relate with you on wanting to take better care of yourself after transition, and it really gives you a little bit more drive to want to do that.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I think something we had in common here is a lot of us may have had little hiccups with family, but also found our family along the way. So there is some good in there, of course, a lot of good. So I want to hear more about that. In what ways has transition and impacted your life positively?
Who wants to go for that first?
Sure, go ahead, Shaw.
All right. I have the best wardrobe.
Yo,
No, I mean, like,
same.
no, seriously, like, how's it
agree.
positively impacted? No, I mean, I get to, I always used to like look at like, I don't know, like anime characters or like photos of other people or like, then of course in the later years, okay, trans timelines, and then you stare and you're like, but and then you're like, I want that. I want that dress. I want that, whatever. And I can do that now. And I'm confident in that. I'm happy about that. But like, it's the side to that is when you're confident enough to go out and present however and wear whatever, it translates also into the way that you interact with other people, where like you don't have to say, I really feel like I ought to say this. Sometimes there's very important things that you contribute to a team, or there's very important things that you might want to say, but maybe you don't want to conflict. And you kind of like get a better filter for the idea that when you want to be direct about stuff, it's not about causing a problem. It's just about being informative, and it's just about being helpful in a very different way. And so the confidence sort of bleeds over into everything, and it's really just great. And I really resonate with what you'd said about taking care of yourself, both of you. Like before I was like, frankly, not wonderful about like dental health and stuff like that, and I was just like, not loving this body. I just have to keep it going. But now I'm like, I'm not only am I gonna keep the deck from falling apart, but I'm gonna add a new addition on, and I'm gonna put on new windows in the sense of like do whatever you need to do to keep yourself healthy. And so I'm doing like a facial cleaning and moisturizing and all that stuff routine. I never would have done that before, but now I love doing that because it's part of something that gives me confidence.
Oh, I relate to that so much. Wanting to work on more self-care and getting to dress yourself up, and totally. Sorry, Ash, did you
Yeah,
want to jump in?
absolutely.
Yeah. It's like, I think it was kind of the same for me, Shaw, as well. Like with Shaw, for me, like, sorry, back in like, was it? So on my birthday in 2021, I published this avatar. This is my first female avatar, like I actually made. And 2 days later, I actually bought the clothes to match this, and I wore it. And that was the power of. Was this amazing? It was like transformed my life. Did a whole 180. Before I had come out socially, I wore dark clothes, always quiet, hide back, kind of like as Shaw was saying there. Just like, I don't want to take care of myself. I'm not. I'm not worthy of taking care of myself. And it's like when the egg finally cracked, I was like, I need to start taking care of myself. And it felt beautiful because getting up, have a shower, okay, do my face, get my makeup done, go out and show who I am. And that has been a positive experience. Like a major positive for me was earlier this year, I was on holidays with a few friends and we went clothes shopping. It was the first time I ever did that. Bought clothes I never thought I would. And for better, depends how you look at it, I cried my eyes out because I was so happy. And it was this transformative experience. Pardon the pun. Also, positive changes. I've become more outspoken. If you come here to the academy, you will probably see me waxing lyricals, doing terrible poems, being on Moonlit. I would have never done that before I started transitioning, because I was so scared to be seen. But as soon as like, this is who I am, this is who I always wanted to be, it was, I don't know if you ever had this, that nagging voice in the back of your head to say that something's wrong, something's not right. And as soon as I came out, it went away. It's like, that was myself subconsciously telling me, this is who I am now is who I always was meant to be. And that's probably the best moment of my life. I don't know if anyone else has positive changes.
So on the subject of clothing, for me, I actually mostly wear the same kind of style as before, mostly jeans and t-shirt and then a plaid overshirt, but now I do it with intention.
Mm. I think That's important though, like having
Mhm.
like the increased confidence, because like even though you're probably wearing like similar outfit, like people
Mhm.
probably like just because you're like confident in it, like people can like see that, and then
Yeah,
that
and
like
also sometimes I
translates
wear
further.
skirts and dresses, so yeah, like which I did,
Yeah.
I didn't do before, so yeah, and those feel great. But yeah, but even like the everyday clothes, even though my style hasn't really changed, it still feels very different in a very positive way.
Skirt goes spinny.
Yes,
They do.
You never forget your first spin.
That's true.
Absolutely. Tizzy, Earl, do either of you want to jump in on that? Oh,
Yeah, sure. The thing about transition is that it was something that enabled me to go out into the world and hold my head up high and be proud and happy with who I am. And the thing about having that strong foundation of self-care and self-love is that I think it's so important for being able to extend that care and love onto others as well. Because it's really hard when you're unable to love yourself. It's hard to be able to, have the bandwidth to also extend that to others. And so I think that's so important. And that's been such a huge positive change in my life because it's enabled me to be able to, help other people as well besides myself. And that's meant everything to me.
Yeah. For me, it's been like like my process has been very mental. So I sought out HRT before social transition. I was kind of really trying to like rewire my brain. So like my mental health has improved so much in a very, very rapid period of time. So that's been phenomenal. It has been easy. You'll have bad days. You feel all of the emotions and you don't have a choice. But the fact that I can feel happiness now, like genuinely, and feel connected to people and loved, um, really powerful. Um, I think another thing I wasn't too sure about was the breast tissue. But now it's grown on me, so that's been pretty great.
so to speak. Yeah.
Boo. I was here for the bad jokes.
amazing. Well, I'm glad to hear that a common denominator among us is the increase in confidence. Um, and it seems overall mostly good, positive changes. But that said, though, sometimes things can have a little bit of downsides as well. Can you guys give me an example of a difficult or unexpected situation that you've encountered while transitioning? And how did you approach it?
So I think I have a few. I think this we have to kind of want to start, but I think for me, my hardest one was actually beginning to transition. So, as I said, in my introduction, Ireland has one of the best places for being socially transition, but medical, it's not that great. So for me, my GP, best GP I could have ever had in my life. He's had multiple trans patients, so he knew all his stuff, which was like a godsend. Like sent in all the papers, get it done. I'm told 10 years. I'm told 2 years, which is now 10 years. And I remember, I think some people can relate to this, crying my eyes out, thinking it's not going to happen. And I remember someone had told me, "You can go private." My GP actually told me, "You can go private," and that turned what was probably the most depressing moment transition into wow, an unexpected great. It was. They always tell you transition can be a challenge, but but it's the greatest challenge you want to I found I ever wanted to overcome, and I'm so much better for it. I think. And I think like probably another tough moment I had. I think you had as well, our close family. So I come from a very religious family, so that was very tough. But thankfully, it was being able to overcome. I won't talk about it, very personal, but it was. I was so much better overcome becoming them, grow. I think these tough moments help us grow and help us appreciate the people, especially who've come before us, to make it that much better, easier and better for us to come out. People like Tizzy and all that who started transitioning before us. I think without them, I think we'd have more tougher moments and more unexpected challenges along the way. Yeah, like they've been some of my tough moments. I think the hardest moment actually is getting. Sometimes you have to get the courage to go out. You want to go out in that dress. You want to go out in that skirt. It's funny. It doesn't sound like a tough moment for people outside the community. I would say it's like, oh, you're just going down a skirt. It's like, no, I need to mentally prepare myself for this. What if I run into Joe Bloggs who lives next door and sees me in a skirt? Oh God, what do I do? But we persevere, and we show we can rise to the challenge and make ourselves better. Does anyone else have any?
I feel like my hardest thing and my biggest regret was never coming out to my grandparents, because my parents at the time insisted that I shouldn't come out to them because it would put a wedge in the family, but they also had this feeling that like we don't keep secrets, and so it wasn't like so they didn't want me to like only come out to some people, and it was like this really weird situation. And so it was like, so I never had the confidence to come out to my grandparents, my grandpa especially, and so I really regret that. And I think that if I could do it over again, I absolutely would have just come out to him and let the cards fall as they may, because like just getting the support of my parents to actually like make it a real thing, like they really didn't want me to like make it real, is what it came down to.
Like I think I'm the same boat there, Fluffy. Like I've had a really close relationship with my grandmother, and I would have loved to told her. And like I remember talking to my uncle about it, and it's like, oh, she would have loved you even more for that. She would have had to tell you more stories about how great it is to be a woman. I was like, oh yeah, it's like if you're a woman, you can get all these perks. It's like, darn it! If I'd asked her earlier, I would have known about these perks. What are they?
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll go next. I think hopefully I'm past the hardest part. I kind of started transition in hard mode. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm a full-time nomad, so I travel full time. And like when my egg cracked, I was in Idaho, and then I went to Montana, and then Nashville, and then ended up in Florida at the
All the
start
best
of
places.
2022. All the best places. So I started seeking out HRT in Florida. Almost went the DIY route, but decided against it and found an online doctor. But like even not being fully socially out at the time, just like walking down the street, people say all number of horrible things to you. Get refused service at restaurants down there. At least that was my experience. And then since then, it's just been about like one step at a time, like moving in better directions. Moving from having an online doctor to an in-person doctor, changing states, eventually like getting to the West Coast now. But it's been scary because like I can like relate to you on like it being terrifying to wear like a dress outside, but for me I kind of had to rip that band-aid off really quick because I don't have a house. So every time I like want to use the bathroom or whatever, like I have to leave the safety of my vehicle. And so it's kind of like that's been a blessing in disguise, I think, because like that's hard, but it's also given me like more confidence and allowed me to be more confident in the world. And then at this point, like people harass me on the street or whatever, and it just kind of rolls off. And making sure you have like some personal safety equipment. So I've got like a sexual assault alarm on my keychain that I have with me at all times. Um, just stuff like that. So it's been like the conclusion I came to is that like for me transitioning stopped being like a choice and became a necessity, and so despite the physical barriers of patient and society is something I needed to pursue for my life. So, it's just getting better though. Things are way better now.
I'm glad to hear that. Would anyone else like to answer that one?
I think
Yeah, I
one
can
of the
talk.
hardest things for me. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Please go ahead.
All right. I think one of the most difficult things for me early on was this period of having to kind of deconstruct my old life and just like watching everything kind of fall apart, and losing a lot of friends, losing a lot of opportunity. And then, of course, family was always kind of a struggle as well. I also had very conservative religious parents. And so, that's always a tough thing to deal with. But kind of like on the other end of that, it was just kind of like Phoenix from the ashes moment, because like, yeah, I was having to tear myself down, but like on the other end of it, I feel like I came out so much more authentically, because it allowed me to surround myself with people who appreciated me for who I was. And I think that's why having chosen family is so, so important, and having a strong network of people around you who support you, even if they're not directly your blood relatives. Um, and I think that's like such an important thing. And also having access to resources as well. When I started transitioning in 2013, I didn't know any trans people. It was just like me and Google, and like trying to kind of like figure it out. And it was tough back then, because we just didn't have the resources that we have now. And so navigating that was, interesting. But I ended up surrounding myself with a lot of other trans people, and we had a good community in West Hollywood where I lived at the time, and we'd go to all the trans pride events and everything, and it was just it was a beautiful moment of just kind of like rebuilding my life after tearing it all down.
Oh, I can
It's
totally
extremely
relate to the
relatable.
lack of resources back then.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Laura.
I was just gonna say Phoenix
sorry,
from the Flames. That's all I had to
Right.
add.
Oh my gosh, that was
I love
really
that
relatable.
phrase.
The deconstruction, because
Hmm.
yeah, I remember like I had a lot of different like professional identities where I was basically a public figure for a company or a group of companies, and so I really didn't have the opportunity to just be a different person in a different place wherever I traveled or whatever, and kind of try on whatever made sense socially or even like with clothes or whatever. So I felt honestly really trapped, and it was a blessing and a curse when the whole pandemic started in a way, because I was working in a country that would not have been very accepting of all of this, and for a company that certainly wouldn't have accepted me approaching that sort of change with them while being a face for them within that other country. So, I felt kind of trapped. So when the company just rapidly downsized in response to the pandemic, it was like this little doorway opened. It was not going to be an easy journey, but it was like I could take this, I could do this. Um, and other barriers. I honestly had thought to wait until some of my family was no longer around before I would approach this. But then ultimately made the decision that, you know what? I remember I visited the resting place of my father one time for a memorial with the family, and we did that for a few years after that. But I remember talking with some of my relatives, and I got this feeling that there was some support, and so that kind of gave me the strength. And then, of course, I met so many people as a result of getting aligned and with Helping Hands, and also through the academy, has given me even more clarity and strength to realize that there's people that are supportive that have gone through these experiences. And then that's kind of part of the reason that I chose to participate in this at all, was because I want to be able to tell that story. I want to be able to give other people the confidence of whatever journey it is they're going through, whatever questions it is that they have, that you can talk to people. There's resources you can reach out. It doesn't matter where that journey of questioning takes you. It's important to not shy away from it, because if it's persistent, if this is a kind of thing that's stuck in your mind for a long time, it's not going to go away. You got to work through it, whatever it is. So I want to be able to make that journey easier for other people and make it more possible. Yeah, that was my contribution.
And thank you for sharing that. I kind of want to jump in a little bit with my own answer. When I started transitioning a decade ago, I found that when I began, I realized that my dysphoria was actually getting worse after starting my transition for a period of time. I found that suddenly I had this goal in mind, and my vision of myself was not reality. So that really mentally was difficult for me. But over time, I slowly improved. I learned to take care of myself better, dress a little better. I let the hormones do their work, and luckily that improved. So yeah, just give things time. But with that, I'm sure other people can relate to that a little bit. But with that said, I'm glad we all found our own community as well. Has anyone's perspectives or opinions of you changed over time through your transition? And how's that?
I
Go ahead.
can answer that. Not just perspective and all that, but the company I used to work for when I started transitioning, I think they were quite opposite of Shawarma's. My boss he was gay, he was married, and he did everything. Say, what name do you want? I will talk to HR, I will do this. And we had about 150, 200 people on our project spread across 3 countries. And I remember having meetings like, okay, we're going to make sure everyone calls you Ash. And I remember not one person said anything negative. It's like, it's this, congratulations, you're amazing, all that. And that was breathtaking, just like me.
True.
I had to say it. At least someone knows it's true. And like, perception-wise, like people have said to me, it's like, you always have people say, "Oh yeah, we knew," and I actually have people. Yes, it is true. People do go up and just like, "Oh yeah, we knew," or some people have like just been so much more accepting to me, even in VR chat, like people who I knew before coming out socially, they offered their support, which is great. I mean, God, I'm trying to think of so many things. Like, it's amazing how you see from transitioning male to female how they're treated, how a male is treated versus a female is treated in terms of support, which is both great and kind of not great at the same time. But yeah, it's like apart from the company I worked with was amazing, helping me with in transition and all that. Is like making everything as painless as possible. Even like doctors or even my government here made everything really smooth and even support from Tizzy when I first came here. I mean, I was talking about earlier about gender GP, and it's like, words about that. People's like, don't give up, you can do it, which is, I mean, people say it's like this saying, oh, you can do it. That doesn't mean much, but to the person, it means the world. You might as well just give them $1 million. How is it for the rest of you with support systems?
I got so much
I
support when I
Shays.
came out at work. Yeah, similarly, it was like when I like I said before, I was only really medically transitioning, but then in 2016, I got just like there was like pressure that had to release, and so I finally came out at work after a lot of deliberation, and I just got so much support, and like my manager was like really supportive and like aggressive about making sure people used the right pronouns for me. Yeah, it was really great, and yeah, I just wanted to like reiterate that positive experiences can happen for that. Yeah.
Indeed.
I have a really
Hey,
positive
Fiona?
experience with my current. Oh, hello.
Maybe this isn't a good time.
Someone's been attacked by a cat.
I have a really good experience with my current employer. It's actually like who I switched over to. I remember when they were doing like just basically company directory assignments and things like that. They were just like, "Oh, what are your pronouns?" And I was like, "We ask this to everybody. Are you asking me specifically? I mean, what do you know? Do you know something I didn't say? Like, hold on a second." And they're like, no, we just do this for everybody. I was like, oh, well, you could put, let me just type it out. And I type it into the system, I put it in. And they get me, back like 10 minutes later. They're like, hey, the system to do this doesn't do that. How do you want this represented? There was no weirdness about it because I use masculine and feminine pronouns. So my like name tag literally says, she, her, he, him, like combination thereof, and so they had to like manually put that in, and they're just very 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 matter of fact about it, very very supportive, and they're like, okay, it'll be on everything, it'll be changed within 48 hours, and I was like, really? They're like, yeah, that's just how we do it. That's just normal. And yeah.
That's
And then
amazing.
I was like, I wanna put a different name on there because it really feels weird to use that name with that pronoun set. And they're like, hey, yeah, no worries. What do you want? Okay, well, let's put that on there. Okay, great. Yeah, 48 hours, it'll have everything changed. And I was like, you're awesome. And then everybody around the office, everybody is just using proper pronouns, using proper name. It's like there is goodness in the world, and then of course around here, obviously all everybody here and all the friends that I've made and very close friends that I've made here have been great, and all the support that I've gotten from all the friends that I like travel with has been just astounding, amazing. There's fundamentally good support groups that exist. So like if that's ever something that's concerning, like it's not to say it's a false concern, but it's definitely way bigger of a scary monster than it actually ended up being.
Would either of you would like to take a shot at that one?
Yeah, I can go.
Go
I
ahead,
think
Aura.
for me the most noticeable change, like my perception is like also through work. So I've been working at Walmart for the past like 14 months or so, and I started working there in Utah in a rural community, and I was like deathly coming out. So I was still going stealth at work until like I changed my name in the HR system like a week or two before transferring to California. And then since transferring to California, I have kind of had to fight to get people to use my pronouns properly. But it's been good. It's been mostly positive. Like I don't really have any coworkers that are negative light because of it. Management supporting me. And then, I mean, with my family wise, I think they started to realize that they didn't really know who I was. And that was kind of a scary realization for them. And I don't know how they're processing that because I've separated. But from my friend group standpoint, it's like nothing's changed. They still accept me. I haven't lost any friends. I've gotten closer to a lot of people, and yeah, just finding better support networks through VR. And yeah, it's been really magical that way, actually.
I'm so glad to hear that. Tizzy, how about yourself? Any
I had a
support
pretty
systems?
positive experience at work. I mean, I came out, gosh, yeah, it was like 2013, 2014. So it was a while ago. It was before trans was more prevalent in the mainstream media. So for a lot of people, I was the first trans person who they had met. So it was actually kind of an opportunity to allow them to, experience what interacting with a trans person was like. And I think that helped them to have a little bit more understanding. And I think that's so important. And it's something that, is why we have Trans Day visibility, right? Is because when we're visible, we can be able to show people, who we are, what we're going through, and that we're just, humans that just want to make a better life for ourselves. And, we still have to go to work like everybody else. And I think that understanding creates acceptance. And so at the time, that was kind of my own personal goal, is like, how can I connect with my coworkers and allow them to interact with me and like understand trans issues. And I think I created a few allies out of that as well. And so I had a good support structure at the time at work. I was working in Hollywood at the time, in feature film, and so the environment was already kind of like pretty accepting. But yeah, I had great coworkers.
I'm so glad to hear that. So you've all been transitioned, I'll use that phrase, for a while now. You've done a lot of work. You've done a lot of work for the community as well with that, to help other people with their transitions. But are there any personal milestones or achievements during your transition that you are proud of? It could be a personal milestone, or it could be something you've done to help others.
I think I have a few, and
Mm.
they're on paper they sound like, oh, it's very simple and all that. Like first personal milestone is actually applying the estrogel. That was like, wow, this is the first day of my new life, or my real life. Even just like putting on a skirt, going out and about in it. I think my first time I was in another country, didn't know anyone. So like, why not take the risk? I don't know anyone around here. They don't know me. And I think that's an important thing to remember. When you're in about, people don't know who you are. So you can be yourself. And I think another personal one was putting on makeup for the first time. It's like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And I'm also particularly proud of everyone here. You've made big steps. Not just people on the panel, but everyone here in the audience, everyone watching. You've made huge milestones. You should all be proud of yourself, and you're all doing amazing work. So keep on being amazing to everyone, and don't be afraid. That's all I'll say. You are visible
Thanks,
today,
Ash.
and for every day going forward.
Yeah,
I'm being
and
sentimental.
building on a thing Ash just said, so a thing I had to really remind myself of is that other people care about me, like just on the street, about as much as I care about them, which it sounds kind of bleak, but really it's freeing. Because like you don't have to worry about like everyone scrutinizing your appearance, because you're not scrutinizing their appearance either. On a sort of related note, the big milestone I want to talk about is the last time I tried using the men's room, which it's not really an achievement so much as it was just a big like this is kind of funny. So this was in 2019. Like even though I had socially transitioned-ish with friends and everything in 2016, I was still going back and forth between boy mode and girl mode, more or less. So I was at a train station waiting to take a train down to Portland, and I needed to use the bathroom. So I went I started walking to the men's room because I felt like I was in boy mode. A big guy like stands up and like blocks me from the door, and I'm like, hi? And he's like, this is the men's room. Women's room is over there. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I've only gone to the women's room ever since. It's like, yeah, it's yeah. Other big milestones in my life, like actual milestones, like getting starting my medical transition, getting my orchiectomy, and then later getting my final GRS and everything. Those are all just like really big moments that like that they feel minor in the big scheme of things, but they were just so important, and they're still so important to me. So yeah.
Fluffy, you just reminded me of something funny that happened to me as well regarding that. So, like, when I was going through security at the airport, I was like, you have to check your shoes, and there was one other woman with me, and it's like, can we check your shoes? So I have to raise your feet like that. I was like, and it's like, yeah, that's fine. It's like, I've always wondered, why do women always raise their feet like that? Like, men take a step back. And I was like, and it's like, you've no idea how much of a day you've made for me right now. Of course, going through security, beeper goes off. It's like, oh God, they pat me down. It's like, oh, a woman's doing the pat down. Well, they only pat down people with the same gender. It's like, what the heck is this airport? This is gender euphoria.
I had so many airport experiences where, like you know, the two screeners would like argue about whose job it was to pat me down because they just couldn't tell. And like each of them thought that the other was responsible. It was, and I was just like, I don't care, just get me through.
Yeah.
You can both pat me down.
They would always, because I've had long hair since I was like 9 years old, like super thick long hair, and they would always, the detector would always go off for my back because it's like really thick hair. And so I remember I was going through the airport when I was like, oh gosh, like half a year into medical transition, and I think I don't, whatever, I don't think I pass at all. But I go through the detector, and apparently they poke a button based on like I guess the assumed like gender of the person because there's different densities of different. I don't know how all that works. But the point being, it didn't go off. And then another time, I think on the same trip, going on a different flight, they were like, "Yeah, we got a woman." Okay, and then they had to do a pat down, and I was like, "Yeah." But then, like my ironic favorite milestone was I had my headphones on and I was just like listening to music really low volume. I was in line for coffee. I did not pay attention that I got to the front of the line, and the person in front said, "Ma'am." Somebody else over here is like, "Ma'am," and then another person taps me on the shoulder, is like, "Ma'am," and I was like, "Oh yeah, it's my turn. I gotta get my coffee. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that."
It's what I
Those
keep
are the
saying
best
a few
moments.
times. Yeah.
You
Say it
never
again, ma'am.
It's these little tiny things that really are like heavily validating in the weirdest sort of way, but I absolutely love them.
You never forget your first momming.
Oh yeah,
True.
Yeah.
or
for
the
sure.
10th.
Like also piggybacking off what you said about the makeup, like for me at one point, this was like back in 2012 when I was teaching at a music school, like we had to do some filming, and so one of the teachers there, Robin, taught me how to do like stage makeup, so just like getting a flat face so it like doesn't affect the lighting. I had a gender crisis and then quit very shortly after because I just couldn't handle it at the time. But then later on, like I've kept up with Robin throughout the years, and I'm like, hey, can you show me how to do my makeup again? But this time, like, for real. Like, I'd love to. So a few days after that, I had like a really important business meeting, and this was like my first time like wearing makeup, like IRL at like we were getting like brunch or something. And I go to the bathroom and just like touch up a little bit and come back out. And as I'm standing in line, two guys like complimented me on my outfit. They complimented me on my shoes, and then one of them like asked me out, which was like, what, what? Like, I of course said no, but it was incredible. Like, like I don't know. Yeah, that's probably like the biggest milestone for me.
Oh, I love that. Did anyone
Yeah,
else
that first
have an
time
answer?
that you get gendered correctly, that's always such a special moment. I'm trying to think back when I think it was at Disneyland actually. You know how there's a little tram that goes between the parking lot and the park
Yes.
itself.
Yes.
And so like I was getting onto the tram, and at the time like I had been on HRT for maybe like a year and a half, and I was holding off on like fully transitioning. I was in boy mode at the time. I call it hoodie mode, because like I wasn't fully ready to make the leap yet because I was dealing with a lot of anxiety about that at the time. And then I was getting onto the tram, and the guy at the door was like, have an awesome day, ma'am. And I was like, oh, it happened. It finally happened. And it was like such an affirming moment. And then like from there, it was just like, ma'am, like everywhere that I went, I was like, okay, it's time. I got to make the leap. And it's the best thing I ever did.
I had a very similar experience to you. I was on HRT for about a year, still putting mode in, and I was at a restaurant with my mother, and the waitress like ma'am missed me. It was like, "Oh, it's happening," and that was so affirming. My mother immediately pointed it out. She's like, "She said miss. She said miss," and yeah, so that's when I knew to start. It was working as well. So
Yeah, it
very,
sneaks up on
very
you.
wonderful. Yeah,
And
it
there's
stinks
always like
out.
euphoria, like
Yeah.
being harassed by a guy on the street because like they think you're a woman, and it's like, oh, great.
That's weird feelings.
Yeah, it's like, thanks.
Gender euphoria from
You're
normal
gross.
things.
Yeah, you're really gross. Please go away, but thank you.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
A little
gosh.
flattering. No, but thank you.
Oh god.
So again, we've all been transitioning for a little bit of a while now. So based on your journey and what you know now, what advice would you give to others or your past selves who are just starting their transition?
I'll go first. Like, what I'd say to my past self is don't be scared. What you're feeling is normal. It's your body telling you what's the right you are who you are, you are you want to be. Don't be scared. Everything will be okay. And
Mm-hmm.
I would say to everyone, everything will be okay. There will be tough times, there will be good times, but in the end, it'll be the best of times.
Yeah.
I really want to do a Simpsons joke there, but I wouldn't want to do it. There's the blurst of times. But yeah, I mean, the advice is go for it. Always make sure you get your information you need and all that. And especially, I would give this tip, and it's been said to me so many times when I started. If you are meeting with family for the first time since you transitioned, maybe do it in a public space, just for your own safety. Because I think we should always remember, like despite everything we're saying, safety is number one. Always look after yourself. You are your number one. You are the most important person, so
Oh,
you need to be safe.
yeah, I'm going to see a friend
Thank you for sharing that.
before they fall asleep.
It looks like we had someone disconnect for a moment, but they'll be back. Anyone else? Would anyone else like to take that?
So, like,
Yeah,
I would,
go ahead.
like, depending on where I can go back, like, as a teenager, I'd be like, oh, you're worth it. You feel okay. This will be okay. You'll live through this and things will definitely get better. But for the comedy option, I could go back to 1988 when 10-year-old me is reading the manual to Super Mario 2 and reading about Birdo and being very interested in that and saying, it's okay that you feel that way too.
If you invite me to karaoke,
But yeah, basically just being able to just going back to affirm
5
myself
Eastern.
that these feelings aren't going to go away and that they're valid and that you will be loved and that you're not broken and that everything is going to work out. And yeah, just like being able to just let myself thrive and not worry so much about what other people are going to think, that would be really helpful.
Thank you. That's great advice. Would anyone else have anything to share?
What I was gonna say is don't hold yourself back. I've found like throughout my transition, like the biggest barrier in moving forward has been myself, not necessarily like society around me. And then two, to stay connected and like find community and really kind of pay attention to the people that you have in your life and pay attention to who's like tearing you down versus like who's building you up. And whether it's coming into the Trans Academy or online communities or like local pride centers, like I can't stress like the importance of finding a community that like loves and accepts you for who you are. I would have made this far if I didn't. So those are my two nuggets.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. I pretty
Indeed.
much mirror what Ara said. You know, I think if I had to give advice to my younger self, it would be to move away from toxic people that hold you back and make you feel bad about yourself. Like, don't be afraid. Like, your life's going to be so much better for it, and your relationships are going to be so much more authentic on the other side. And I know it's kind of cliche to say, but it does get better, and especially if you have a good community to help you through it.
Like the Trans
That's
Academy.
super true.
Mm-hmm.
Good
Absolutely
advice
agree.
points. So don't simply take no for an answer. Don't be afraid to ask for a second opinion. Go out and meet people who are reading is great, studying is great. Go out and meet people who are going through a similar experience. When you've analyzed that the correct decision is a particular thing, don't be afraid of it. Needles don't hurt so much. They're fine. And just believe in the things that you care about, the identity of who you are as a person. Own that. Don't let somebody else dictate it to you. You ultimately have to be the one to live your life, and so it has to be a life that you really feel is something that you're happy about and that you feel like brings you up and gives you the ability to bring other people up. At least those are values that are important to me. But whatever those values are to you, just make sure that that's the life that you're living and that's the path that you're on. And just don't be afraid to keep walking down it. And it does definitely get easier. I can relate to that. I thought so many times that it wouldn't. But when you're true to yourself, so many things are possible that just can't be possible otherwise.
What's the cliche saying? It's always darkest before the dawn.
True.
Mhm.
That's
so
not
true.
physically true, but it's nice, yes.
It's actually always darkest before it goes pitch
God.
black, but I like the sentiment.
Well, the light eventually comes there somewhere.
Right. So, a little bit of advice I would give is not to let your anxiety and fear be your saboteur. That's with transition and pretty much anything else in life, really. Anxiety can make a situation a big scary monster. I say this all the time, but like sometimes it's good to do the scary thing, and you'll realize it's not actually so bad. Um, and I find that also helps when you do the scary thing. You'll look back and realize it's not so bad, and then it'll be a little bit easier to do next time. You just gotta break that ice, and I think that also works with transitioning as well. So I just have like one more question for everyone. Do you have any opportunities to educate and advocate for transgender issues in your daily life? I guess we all do here. If so, could you share some examples?
I suppose not in my daily life, but I have a therapist. She knows a bit about trans people, but it's like I also kind of help her in many ways. It's a two-way street in therapy sometimes. Explaining things and all. I actually got her to read, of all things, a manga that was about a person who was non-binary and all that. And I remember she told me after reading it, it was like that was like the most intense in a good way story she's read, and it helped explain so much for her, which was amazing to feels weird to help educate a therapist who's there to help you, which is great. Uh, in my day life, I probably well, no, I don't. I've actually so where I live in Dublin, we have multiple Pride organizations. So we have a Pride Hub, Nursery Centre, which is just shopping. You can buy Pride merchandise and also get help and all that. They don't have as many transgender people, so when I'm up there, they ask me questions about being trans and all that, and we have a conversation, which is the best thing because if you don't have a conversation, it doesn't go anywhere. everything starts with a good conversation. That's like a good cup of tea.
I love that.
I'm thirsty.
I can totally relate to having to educate um, your therapist. I had to teach my GP all about hormones and all that. It was very entertaining. Luckily, he was open to it. Is
That's
anyone
hard
else?
finding someone like that who can like
Yeah.
be trained on that. Yeah.
Mhm. Oh,
Yeah, I guess while I'm
I find.
talking, yeah. Oh, sorry. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say I find a lot of us end up becoming experts in the field and end up training our medical professionals sometimes.
Yeah,
Finding
like
doctors who aren't
transing.
super transphobic is hard, but yeah. So I mean, like in
Yeah.
addition to the stuff I do with the Trans Academy media team, like so I mean, I live in the Seattle area, and we have an all trans non-binary choir that that I sing in.
wow.
And we do outreach events and so on. I gave a speech during the Trans Day of Remembrance one about like vocal transition and about like trying to become fine with not having a super feminine voice and everything. Then also the most visited page on my website is my detailed description of the non-binary GRS that I had. And so it's been really helpful for a lot of people to understand that there's options other than the fully binary transition. So yeah, it's really satisfying that. I mean, I wish people would look at my music more, but it's. But it's yeah, it's nice that like the resources that I've put out there have been very helpful for others.
Definitely helps to have a lot of resources for not non-binary transitioners, and that's very relatable. I remember a couple times I deal with the general public on a daily basis, and so I remember one time there was a mother and a child, and I remember that this particular child was just kind of staring at me in confusion and awe for most of the entire interaction where I was helping this other person. And then the child's like, I have a question. And I'm like, okay. And the parent is like, clearly like, oh no, not one of
Oh
those, not one
no!
of those. Don't let it be that. Don't let it be that. And they were like, are you a boy or a girl? And I was like, that's a really interesting question. And I sip my coffee and I put it down. And we finish our interaction, and the child's like, but which one is it? And I was like, oh, that's an interesting question. And it's like, think about it for yourself. Like maybe that mental exercise can help you realize that difference is more like a you thing than a me thing. Oh my gosh. But oh gosh, like opportunities to help. I obviously talk to people on like a fairly regular basis. I might be one of the first people that somebody sees when they hop into the academy. And so I like for that opportunity to be one where like if somebody wants to just think that they're going to ask a really triggering question like, are you trans? And like, yep. And like, now you got to move on. Your move, buddy. Because once we get that out of the way, it's like there's so many other things we could talk about. I could talk about programming with you. I could talk about modeling with you. I could talk about like international trade with you. What do you want to learn? And if what you want to learn is part of my experience that I've been through, a part of the knowledge that I've gained through other people that I know, like great, we can talk about that. We can have a conversation. There's so much opportunity when you just kind of like take something that somebody thinks is a barrier and just like rip it down and throw it away, and it's like, okay, next question. But no, I like the fact that like on a daily basis I deal with a lot of people who are much older. And so like for them, I might be the first person that they'd ever seen that just things don't match up mentally for them when they're looking at me and hearing me at the same time. And that's great. I think that's sort of like just being who you are, and then being something that forces people to like actually take their automated part of their brain and stop it for a second, and then take the other faculties and like go, hold on, we gotta open some books here. We gotta look this up because this is different. When you're forcing people to like exercise more mentally, like it leads to just like a better interaction, and it just like I'd rather that I am the first person that they have to interact with if they're going to say something awkward, rather than somebody who might not be like so used to it and so like ready for that kind of interaction. Because somebody who's like very either in the closet or very early on could be like harmed by that. And so I'd rather like take that right up front and just kind of deal with it and like get the awkward questions out of the way. And like now you can just deal with me like I'm a regular person because I want the same thing that you do. I just want to live. I want to have awesome family and friends. I want to do great things. I want to help people. I want to make the world a better place. Like it's not rocket science. We all pretty much want that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, I think the biggest impact that I'm currently having or working on having, in addition to the staff role that I have here at the academy, like I've been a musician. I'm a career musician, and I've been running a record label for about years. And so recently, we've developed a partnership with Beatport, and they've tasked me with helping highlight trans artists through their platform and by extension, music industry at large. So that occupies a lot of my time, and I'm nurturing a small group of artists at the moment. But yeah, that's my day to day, which looks not so much like direct on the ground interaction, but more administrative work and emails, honestly.
Amazing. Anyone else?
I think one of the most beautiful moments that I experienced when it came to being able to realize that we were going to make a big positive change in the world was when Rachel did her first class here at the Academy. I think it was like January of last year. And it was the first time we had really organized anything of that size. And we didn't know how that was going to play out. Everybody was just kind of hoping for the best. And I just remember I was standing over there on the side and just seeing this like sea of trans flags in the audience and just like tearing up and realizing that this is going to be a really special thing and we're going to help a lot of people. And that meant everything to me. And it's why I and the rest of the staff pour ourselves into this every day, because it's the thing that we wish that we would have had when we were starting transition. And we know how important it's going to be to our community and already is. So thank you, everybody, for being a part of that journey, too.
I agree. Thank you so much. A lot of our amazing staff here put in hours and hours daily. It's basically a full-time job for a lot. But it's all
Yeah.
mostly volunteer. It's pretty much all volunteer. So I'm definitely grateful for our amazing staff for that. Though. Yeah. But anyone else? All right. So I'm out of questions. We have roughly about 7 minutes schedule left. Do any of you have any final advice or anything you want to say at all?
I have one thing to say. Don't be afraid to be yourself. Don't let others judge you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and also like just let people be allies. Like the really surprising thing for me. So when I moved to my current house, it's in a small town just outside Seattle. Word got out that a trans person was moving in. All the neighbors were like rushing to meet me and everything, and they all wanted to warn me about the older gentleman in the house behind mine, about how he's so old-fashioned and might have difficulty with it. Guess who's the only person in my neighborhood who has never misgendered me?
I love that. Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Any final advice you want to give? All right. Well, we have a few minutes left. Do we want to wrap it up here? Do we feel comfortable answering questions? No?
I think we're good.
Okay.
Thank you,
Sounds
everybody,
good.
for coming.
Yeah,
I want to thank
you.
everyone for coming out. Thank you so much. Glad to have everyone. I want to thank Helping Hands with Shade Access and Polly Swift again for interpreting for us. And of course our amazing speakers. Thank you so much for sharing
Yeah.
your transition stories. And of course,
Thank you for
thanks
listening.
all of you. Thank you, all of you. Our next panel is coming up in roughly an hour. It's going to be a trans mask visibility. We're going to be having a couple people joining us. We'll have Pongo, Essek, and Zach. So we're going to take a small break.